Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Law Society of Nunavut CLE on cybersecurity. Today we have Ryan Durrell. He's the CIO and principal broker for Alternative Risk Services and is the program broker for the CLIA mandatory and standalone cyber insurance programs. With over 20 years of professional liability insurance experience across the actuary, claims, underwriting, and brokering disciplines, and 10 years working with law firms and law societies to meet their cyber insurance needs, Ryan brings his varied experience in both consulting and brokering engagements. We also have Greg Markle. He's the president and CEO of Rich Canada Cyber Solutions. He is a leading insurance expert on the topic of cyber and privacy liability, with experience in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. In addition to his work as president and CEO, Greg also works on complex program placements, including the CLIA mandatory and standalone cyber programs, and has oversight over claims management through those programs, giving him insights into the threats that face companies and law firms alike. So I welcome you both and thank you for both for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Santana. All right, well, let's kick off our presentation and get straight to the fun part. Today we're going to be talking about the scary reality of the must-have tools to protect you and your clients. So running through the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what cyber risks are, how cybercrime is actually a business, how do you get hacked, some real claims examples with Greg Markle, as well as how do you protect your firm and your clients through the controls that are available. We'll quickly run through the claims process in case you ever have to use it, and knock on wood you won't, and as well as a quick overview of your Law Society provided coverage. Jumping right in, what is a cyber risk? Essentially, it's attacks and losses related to personal data, business data, systems, and/or money. Personal data is the personally identifiable information. If you've ever had to fill in a third-party cyber application, then this PII thing comes up. Essentially, it's data that's identifiable enough to cause real harm in the wrong hands. Typically, this has to pass a specific test. I'm going to throw it to Greg to just give us a 10-second highlight on the Roche test.
Yeah, it's what we've seen on anything coming out of you have to report it based on it passing the real risk of significant harm. Anything that could have a financial impact to end clients. Right now, there's a bit of a debate out there within Canada. Is personal health information something that's going to cross the Roche test? It does vary depending on the circumstance and the severity impact, but overall, if it's credit card information, if it's anything that folks could use to apply for some sort of credit product in your name, that's enough to trigger it. What we're seeing is anything above what I call yellow pages info, which is just name and phone number, or now name, email address, and phone number. It's typically likely that it's going to have an impact on the Roche test.
Thanks, Greg. And the personal data is something that criminals can use to sell on the dark web. At the end of the day, they're not in it just for the fun, they're in it for the money, which we'll talk about in a minute. Business data is another piece. Like the personal data, it could cause real harm to your clients, vendors, or colleagues, and lead to third-party claims against lawyers and law firms in the long run, which is why third-party coverage for cyber incidents is so important. For example, like lost client files, where there would be information that would have been privileged that's being lost, that may or may not be used for direct harm, but also may trigger reporting requirements. Systems would be another piece. Using the inability to lock down your systems and prevent you from conducting your business is something that can be extorted. So ransomware is the buzzword you've probably heard. And really, this is also broadened out to not just ransomware, but extortion. In addition to getting access to your systems, they may exfiltrate that business or personal data and then hold you ransom for that as well. Regardless of how pervasive it is, the fact that it will interrupt your business operations is a very real concern. So business interruption coverage for this is really important. in a cyber policy. And last but not least, money. At the end of the day, they're really trying to get money, and the fastest way to do it is go straight to the point. Greg, do you want to talk about the variance of financial crime that comes out of cyber attacks?
Sure. And thanks, Ryan. This is the equivalent of smash and grab. As Ryan mentioned, the most direct access that threat actors have is through these different ways of these different variants of getting access to funds. So the second fastest is that extortion or ransomware um, tactic that Ryan mentioned, typically perpetrated over a couple of weeks. They case your systems for a long time. It's very organized, and it's tough. Everything out there is tough right now, but this is the fastest way for criminals to monetize. And the most direct way to do it is through those first two variants, which is social engineering fraud or computer fraud. So the hacking of people, that is where someone gets in and convinces someone else to change banking information, and you voluntarily send money, whether it be coming from your ops account or your trust account, out of the business itself, out of the firm itself, and to either someone.
No, I may have lost Greg for a hot second
Can
there. No, sorry, Greg, are you back?
you hear me? Am I back?
Now you're back.
Now I'm back. Okay. I think I'm back. One quick second. Can you hear me, Ryan?
I can hear you just fine, Greg. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully
Okay,
everybody else can hear you.
perfect. I'll do some tweaking after this point. Um, I'm not sure when I cut out, but the duping and the voluntary release of funds from whether it be ops or trust out of the practice, that's the social engineering fraud aspect. That is the most common loss that we are seeing out there. It is the fastest, and it what we found is tough to recover the funds once they're outside of your control. So the banks are having a more difficult time like actually recovering. So we don't see a lot of 100% recovery as it relates to those funds going out. And again, it's a voluntary release, so it's not as if in most cases where you're just duped. It's someone pretends to be someone and has funds released. But the computer fraud side, which is where someone gets in and breaches your systems, changes your banking information, and routes those payments externally. We're seeing that less than the social engineering fraud aspect. The telecommunication fraud and the cryptojacking, also coverages that are out there in the insurance world. We're not seeing a ton of the telecommunications fraud anymore. That came in after one of the large newspaper agencies in the UK got hacked, and that was sort of the genesis of that coverage coming in. And then cryptojacking it's a slow drip. It's not as fast as the impact that the first two have. But this is where someone gets in and uses up your computing power um, to essentially mine cryptocurrency. And so the proceeds of that crypto mining goes to someone else, and your operations slow down because your machines are overworked. So much less common, but still out
But
there.
cryptojacking, Greg, is also about the sheer electricity costs of running computers flat out all the time, right?
Correct. The extra expense involved in it. Yes.
Thanks for that, Greg. That's perfect. So the hacking of people, the hacking of the systems, but with the intent of directly getting at funds. So just to sort of sum it all up, that cybercrime is a business, unless we think it's predominantly just teenage hackers sitting in their basement trying to be mischievous. It's very much a business. and it works similarly to any other business. So it starts off with lead generation, as Greg mentioned earlier. Sometimes they're sitting in your systems for up to 6 months, just monitoring, trying to figure out how your systems work before they act to try and destabilize your systems or take information. They start with lead generation by implanting software or getting leads and passwords and confident credentials and so on. Then they identify the best clients, which is essentially your sales force determining which leads are the best. And then they execute the service, which is the service of locking up your systems or taking your data and then helping you to pay them. And they actually do seem to act like a business like any other. They do have quotas and targets, and they spend all day long trying to get access to your systems so that they can monetize your data and your needs. They, as Greg has mentioned before on other calls, they have human resource departments. They have a very competitive environment. There's different variants. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah, yeah, we've seen everything from across the gamut. It's I've had surveys sent out by threat actors at the end of a ransomware circumstance asking how their customer service was, were they responsive enough? We've had mid ransom them follow up and say, hey, if you're having trouble procuring the crypto that we're extorting you in, if you need help with it, we have some great brokers for you from a crypto access perspective if you need some help with this. Like a lot of visibility came out when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. One of the networks was dismantled. Dismantled. You had some Ukrainian defectors who moved out, and they shone a light on the inner workings of one of the major gangs. And they had recruiting departments, HR departments, as Ryan mentioned. They have marketing teams. They are run as an organized criminal enterprise, and it is very, very effective. And this is what everyone is up against. So it's there's some of this stuff where it's like that's kind of funny. Like it's like a survey finding out. It is until you're in it and you're up against some very, 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 very well funded, successful criminal enterprises across many different countries and jurisdictions. So it's tough out there.
Thanks, Greg. So how do you get hacked, as it were? We call them attack vectors, but really we mean weak spots in your systems that criminals use to execute attacks, some of which include firewalls, endpoints, remote access, so dialing into your systems remotely from home, unpatched systems where there are critical security patches that haven't been applied, open ports like remote desktop, which often IT professionals use to access servers. Two key ones we really want to highlight. One is emails. So accessing your email, getting access to your email inbox is a major, major one. Business email compromises the name of the type of claim that is. It includes phishing, man in the middle, but essentially they also have access to your full emails. They may use it to spoof your firm, to send fraudulent invoices to your clients that get paid elsewhere. So this is a major one we want to highlight, and we'll talk a little bit about what those look like in a few minutes' time when we go through some claims examples. And I guess the top one is people, and you're all here, so you're not missing out on the training that is necessary to keep us all abreast of these issues and be mindful that this is an ever-present risk to our businesses if we're connected to the internet, or even if we're not, because you could just lose a device that had secure data on it. So people is the number one issue, and then emails and the various others. So unless you're in IT, some of those terms might be foreign. So we wanted to give you a little map to give you context. And Santana is going to post this presentation after, as she mentioned. And so you don't feel like you have to feverishly scribble notes. This will be something you can take away, print out, And ideally, this rings a bell, and you can identify these things in your own system. So, just looking at an ordinary system map, you'll see that there are people all around the periphery because people are what run the business. You've got banks and email and mobile endpoints, or EPs as we call them. Phones, cell phones also have your email on them. The internet connects your firm to the internet through a firewall, which is typically an appliance, but can be a software item that protects your system from just open attacks. You'll have a router that distributes the various data around your system, servers holding your data, backups, which are so crucial to that operation to make sure that those are secured. You might have web applications or other applications, for example, applications for running your billing software or keeping your client files organized. And then obviously everybody's computer. I'm not sure how many people are still using desktops, but desktops, laptops, whatever the case might be, and then obviously firm staff using them. Now, the hackers just need to get access to the internet to get pretty much anywhere within this system, depending on the controls that are in place. So that's what we wanted to highlight. That connected nature means they have potential routes into every system to execute these attacks. These are just to call out where these various types of attack or threat vectors, attack vectors come from: lost devices, open ports, cryptojacking on servers, denial of service. Distributed denial of service might attack your router, for example. That just ties up your router, means that it is being used for another task other than running your business. You might find your internet slows down. Ransomware attacks your endpoints or your servers, pulling the data of your servers, and of course, phishing, that personal attack on your firm staff to try and convince them to send money, but also then distributing fraudulent invoices. So, key thing to print and take away, to review if you like, but just to give you a sense of where all these attacks might be happening. So I'd turn it over to Greg to cover some real claims that we've experienced within the program. And of course, Greg, throw it back to me if you want my colorful rendition of what I think you might otherwise say.
Yeah, and thanks, Ryan. It's super important to know that attacks can, like, they will target people, but they'll also target systems. Right now, the most common attack that we're seeing is business email compromise. And to put it into a bit of perspective, I only had to have 3 phone calls this weekend, but we've had 7 incidents in all small firms, anywhere from sole proprietor to single office location, like 5 lawyers sort of thing. That has seven incidents in the last 5 business days. And so there's something going on right now. I've heard from a number of other law firms and lawyers specifically that their systems are trying to get duped by hacked emails of other lawyers, and law firms as well. So we're seeing a lot of activity right now on the East Coast and in Ontario specifically, across the country, but more so those 2 locations. So this real life one is where the accounting team and the finance team are often targeted. You know, you may have as a sole proprietor or as a small firm, you may have this outsourced, but that outsourced bookkeeping company might also have a firm email address. And so making sure that the multi-factor authentication is enabled on their access as well is a big one. Um, but for the specific use of having someone else getting access to it and then sending out fake invoices, that's what we've seen a few times. So there's a few things that happen in these cases. We'll get into some of the remediation, but the forensics alone, you've got to figure out how it happened, whose email was impacted. And then there's the potential for e-discovery. Did client information get out? How do you plug the hole before the boat sinks, so to speak, right? So the BEC, or business email compromise, it can come in a number of different factors. This is one way at targeting finance. The other side is targeting your as a lawyer's inbox specifically as well. There's more work that might need to be done if there's sensitive client information that's at risk here. So as opposed to just the smash and grab, there's also business email compromise that could lead to extortion tactics. They don't necessarily just need to lock up your systems. They can, instead of trying to divert payment and focusing directly on monetary loss impact right away, they could also figure out, hey, we have some stuff that's really sensitive in this inbox. And these clients might not want everyone knowing about certain elements of things. And then they might come without locking your systems up, just tell you that they have client data and extort you that way. Much longer, much longer take on it, but then you know that there's a potential privacy issue if from the business information that's out there that might put you in a tough situation from a recovery standpoint. And you would need the forensics to help figure out who accessed it, who's out there, where it's gone, all of these things. And that requires a specific skill set.
Greg, three questions. One, in the case, the real claim example that we've thrown up on the screen, they used phishing to get access to the account. They accessed their personal records, and then they used that access to send fraudulent invoices to the firm's clients. If a fraudulent invoice is sent to a firm's client and the client pays to the wrong account, what's the impact to a firm of that happening?
So a lot of the times, you'll want to try and do some self-preservation. So there could be a monetary impact to the firm. There could be a reputational impact. That client might not deal with you anymore. So it could result in lost clients. But the main one is the damage that it does from a financial standpoint if done en masse. And how do you pay that back? Because at the end of the day, if a client was had performed services too, and or if there was any sort of demand that comes from the client at the end of the day, there's a potential third-party liability issue that your firm could be facing as well. And we've seen
Sorry.
that proliferate.
Follow-up question. In general, how much does it cost to remediate a business email compromise? I know that it can vary a huge deal, but on sort of roughly on average for a single inbox that's compromised, what would the general cost be after all is said and done?
Yeah, you would want a law presenting you as a breach coach. And the reason that you want a law firm to upfront as your breach coach who's hired on your behalf is because any vendor engagement puts it under privilege, puts whatever's found under privilege, and then gives you more control of the situation on the way through. Um, and nothing is discoverable if it does go to worst case scenario where you do get a demand from a client from a loss perspective. Um, but so the legal fees are one thing on average for computer forensics and just business email compromise, helping support your IT to plug the hole and do the analysis of who, what, where, when, why, and how. You're somewhere between $6,000 and $12,000 minimum, just starting
Plus,
point.
plus the general impact on your business and the fact that you have to slow right down and not be able to do your day-to-day work, which is not covered by an insurance policy.
Plus legal minimum, you're looking direct cash outlay before you even know what happened of 20 grand.
Fair. Thank you, Greg. Next up, ransomware. Do you want me to run this one, Greg?
This is the nastiest one, but so go for it if you want, Ryan.
I figured I would take all the glory on this one. This was a real instance where a firm's systems were locked up by a virus that went through and encrypted the firm's entire operational systems. They could not conduct business as a result. They did have backups in place, which would have made it possible to swiftly recover, except that unfortunately those backups weren't tested, and it was discovered that the password to unlock the backups, which were encrypted, which is great, they were lost. And so the firm was out of operations for months, ended up having to pay the ransom in order to protect clients. There was a big privacy element here. There was months of downtime, and they were only able to partially recover some of the funds for the business interruption loss. So it's a major, major interruption for that firm. Next up is a social engineering fraud. Right? This one is a holiday transaction where efforts were,
Yep.
yeah.
They tend to be very opportunistic, given that it was just tax season that has passed. Saw a spike in a lot of this stuff. CRA will never contact you via email, so something to just hold on to. But yeah, the holiday transaction, a lot of the time it's a spoofed email. That tends to be the most common ones. Um, they create a lot of pressure is what we see coming out of a lot of these circumstances. So spoofed email, lighting a fire, purporting to come from you to finance staff or from major client to someone within finance, like I need this, I'm going on vacation, or holidays are coming up, creating that sense of urgency for quick movement of funds. Uh, this is how it typically gets missed, and steps within the risk management element of double checking, calling back, all of these types of simple procedural items that might just get snafu'd in the case of, hey, this is our biggest client, or hey, this is the senior partner. I need to get this done. So it's just something to remind everyone within the firm about. Uh, if it's like an emergency that's being created, let's just be cautious.
Yep, absolutely.
But
And
we
they
see
are
this
often
all the
referred
time.
to as Friday frauds because they tend to happen on a Friday when everybody wants to get away for the weekend. Um, Thanks for that, Greg. So how do you protect your firm and your clients? And there are a variety of rainbow colored protections that we've just made, and that'll come in handy later when you get a beautiful map on where these things live on your firm systems. But these are the sort of the top key controls. Multi-factor authentication. I think everybody can agree it is slightly inconvenient, but massively effective. That text message that you get with a code, which again, never share and never automatically provide that to anybody unless you're expecting it, but also authenticator codes where you log on your phone and authenticate via a third factor, your password, your username, and then of course the actual third factor. Patches are so important these days, making sure that your patches are applied every 2 weeks at a minimum, especially critical security patches. Virtual private networking for remote connections, ensuring that you are not communicating firm data over an open internet connection for it to be essentially intercepted on its way to its intended destination. So a VPN or remote connections, as well as having MFA on logging into that remote connection. Regularly testing backups, as we mentioned, having that protection of a backup is only useful if it actually works. So going in once a month to make sure that your backups are usable and complete is so important. Encryption of remote devices and backups. Laptops, if you have Windows Pro, for example, you automatically have a software called BitLocker. Ensure that's turned on your laptop. Something you can do while you're sitting right here. Click on the start button, type BitLocker, and see if that particular software is on. If it's not, and you lose your laptop, somebody could just open it up or take the hard drive out and read all the personal data that's on the hard drive. So making sure that that data is encrypted. The same goes for phones. iPhones are automatically encrypted if they have a passcode. It's been a long time since you were allowed to have an iPhone with no passcode, but in theory, if you have a very old one. But Android devices are similarly typically defaulted to having encryption turned on, but it is more important to double check that. Endpoint detection and response is a fancy version of what we used to call antivirus. Antivirus used to be a simple white list. These are known good applications or these are known bad ones, and checking against the list. Now endpoint detection and response does so much more. It actually detects what look like malicious processes just based on behaviors. And the response part is so critical because the active software should shut those things down, turn off the internet, and prevent the sideways movement of those viruses that would seek to lock up your systems and prevent your firm from running. Filtering of malicious content, both on internet access, but most importantly on your email. It's typically a free service that's included with your email provider. It just does a simple scan to make sure that there's no malicious content or links to bad sites or attachments that might be nefarious. So filtering is an important piece. And last but not least, but most importantly, is training. Congrats, you're already here. So you're going through some of it right now, making sure that people are aware of security, but also phishing simulations. I think we've all heard jokes about or seen jokes on the internet about being phished by your own IT staff and haha, I got caught or whatever. This is so important, this practice to notice and identify phishing emails so that we know what spoofs look like, and they're getting better all the time. And I think AI, and we won't belabor AI because I'm sure you've heard so much about AI in your industry already, but AI is making it even easier for criminals to actually sound like the genuine article when they send you emails. So in the simplest way, AI is improving their ability to phish us.
Yeah, the quality of the phishing messages, it's not coming out in broken English asking you for gift cards anymore, nor your staff, nor your clerks, nor anybody. It's actually well thought out. It's translated well. It's tougher to it's tougher to find. The other thing that Ryan mentioned on the spoofing side, just on the training and the email and the phishing simulations. It's things like using a lowercase L instead of an uppercase I, or having an R and an N, right? Like an R preceding an N, which makes it look like an M. So you have rnmicrosoft.com, which really quickly, if you look at it on your screen, looks like it's coming from Microsoft.com. But just noticing, and what we're finding in the training, on the training side, the reason it's so important too is having an element of the training that you get on your laptop, your desktop, things like that, but also what to look for on your phones, because a lot of stuff is being done by phone, and like if you're sending an email, it might just say someone's contact, right? Or their name as opposed to the actual email address. And we all get way too comfortable just hitting reply all or reply or and actioning items, especially from the phone because it's so convenient. But digging in and looking at the actual email that it's coming from as opposed to the name that's just coming up, um, much tougher to catch. We just have to be training ourselves to be thinking about this. Like if it's releasing X amount of dollars and I'm doing it from my phone, I should really check on the email it's coming from. Click on it, see it, look at it, and just add it to your repertoire in terms of best practices before authorizing money going out of the trust or the ops.
Sorry, Norman. Norman, did you have a question in the middle, or was that
No,
an?
no, I'm solid. No,
Oh,
no.
no problem. Okay, carrying on. So we all remember this snazzy chart, and again, it's totally printable after the fact. But just to highlight where some of these things live, like the remote access for your banks and your email should have multi-factor authentication, patches everywhere on your applications and your firewall and your routers, VPN for those mobile connections, um, testing of your backups, encryption on your phones, your laptops, your backups, endpoint detection and response on your computers at the office, including your mobile laptops, but also your servers, filtering for malicious links or malicious content at email, training of your staff everywhere, training. We can't get enough practicing of looking out for attacks. So the claims process, and I'll run through it real quick, and then I'll ask Greg to interrupt me wherever I've gotten it completely wrong. just to run through a sense of what the claims process will look like, because this is something I hope you'll never need, but if you do, it's great if you're prepared for what this will look like. First of all, at some point, a real bad day will happen, and it's often they say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You'll have an incident that requires actually going through this process. But the identification of a breach kicks off the process. It seems like something's amiss, or it seems like we've gotten an email or a client said, I think you've been hacked, whatever the case is. At that point, once you've worked with your internal IT folks, or just assessed for yourself that you think it's a genuine event, or even if it's just an incident, it's time to report a claim. That claim report process will involve engaging an external breach counsel. And we think this is step number one in the journey towards restoration, is to reach out to a breach counsel. They are breach coaches. They will help you through the process. They will take the temperature down and evaluate what the situation. They'll be able to opine on what your potential notification requirements are to the Law Society, Privacy Commission, clients, etc. But what will happen after this very, very, very bad first day is that things are likely going to slow down. Once you've worked with your internal IT resources to stem the tide or stop the bleeding, as it were, then things will slow down and it's time to assess and respond. If it's a ransomware event, you're probably going to engage a forensics firm, ideally through the panel program that you have accessible through the coverage for CLIA, which we'll talk about in a few moments. But you'll ideally be dealing with professionals to help clean up. Now, this means you're not using your internal IT people to do the forensics work. And Greg, I think you typically use the term, you can't ask somebody to check their own homework.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. If someone has you sign a retainer, but they're doing ongoing monitoring of your networks, there's potentially some conflict there. But overall, if you just have someone that's helping you set up your computers, set up your emails, they might be doing some monitoring from a security standpoint, and they tell you it's like, hey, something got through, we need some help. They will be involved in all of that. This isn't going to fall squarely on you as the practice leader's desk to do everything. You will be asked about some business making decisions throughout the process, but all in there, the forensics folks know that you're not a forensics expert. They're going to need to work with and alongside your existing IT providers to help get you out of the muck, as it were.
thanks, Greg. And the forensics team, as Greg mentioned earlier, will be engaged through that breach counsel to maintain privilege. And ultimately, when a report comes back that says what they've assessed has happened, that stays privileged, and you work with your breach counsel on what to do about it. It may involve paying a ransom if necessary, as well as any other legal work, legal response if there are third-party claims, for example. And all along after the event, you'll be working towards cleaning up and restoration. And then perhaps the most important thing is, at the end of the day, it does happen. Let's not be embarrassed that it does happen. It does. The most important thing is that we do the best we can to clean it up, and then we apply the learnings to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And if or when it does happen, that we're even more prepared the second time around. So one of the things that is a sort of a mission critical item is to just start anywhere, but start having an incident response plan. What are the numbers we're going to call? Who's going to be in charge? Make sure that the phone number and the email address is listed on this slide are part of your incident response plan, so you know who to call and when. Print a copy of that and put it somewhere accessible, because you might not be able to use your systems in the event of a claim. So make sure you have a printed copy of that incident response plan. And if you ever have an event, at the end of the day, go back and update it with the latest and greatest. One of the things that came out of a tabletop, and having worked with Greg over all these years, I asked him as well, not keeping a copy of your cyber policies on your server. Print it and keep it somewhere else, or encrypt it and keep it locked away. The last thing you need to do is give the criminals a copy of how much insurance you have, so that they know exactly how much to ask for in a ransom. So a couple of these key takeaways about making sure you just make it a little bit harder for the criminals to extract funds from you.
Yeah, the last point
Sorry, go ahead.
about the importance of the cleanup and restoration and applying learnings and making sure that the entire process has been documented is if it is severe enough and if there is if you've had to report it into the OIPC or the Office in the Information Privacy Commissioner's office, then you will also have to keep a log, and they could audit that log at the end of the day too. So just having the experts alongside and making sure that you have those logs, the logs of the incident, and everything is good to go and deemed as such with the OIPC. Also important. It can keep you away from potential fines and penalties.
Thanks, Craig. Just to quickly refresh your memories on what you have through your Law Society. So this is coverage available to all the members of the Law Society of Nunavut and across the CLIA program. Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and Alberta have slightly different programs, but in the other provinces and territories do have access to this program. We have $250,000 of security and privacy liability. This is functionally your third party coverage for cybersecurity events. So if a claim comes forward from a client specifically related to a breach, it may or may not be part of your professional liability, but if it's breach related, it'll almost assuredly be part of this coverage. You also have that's a third party coverage. And then you also have $100,000 for four key coverage elements: data recovery and business income, a loss of business income. So if you do have one of those ransom events and you can't operate until your backups get restored and so on, and as a result, you lose business income, you can actually claim that first party under this coverage. And Greg, we have paid out on that, correct?
Yep, we
We
have.
talked about one of those examples, and we have paid out on this coverage element. So, event management expenses includes the breach coach. The breach coach and the forensics folks could involve other elements as well. Public relations, yes, Greg?
Yeah, typically we see a need for public relations in larger breaches of companies. Less so about managing the media, more so about managing internal communications within the different stakeholders within an organization. So it's not what you would expect on that media facing side of things. What we found is the breach coach, who again is a lawyer, is typically in a much better position to help control the rhetoric that's stemming from these types of losses. The PR and crisis comms is typically in larger organizations.
And the last piece it is sometimes needed is the cost for credit monitoring in case there is
Correct.
personal compromise of banking details, right?
Yeah.
Data extortion is your ransomware coverage in case there's a ransom related event. It's broader than that in the sense that it's extortion in general. So it's not just if your firm systems are locked up, but it could also be exfiltration of data and somebody threatening its release but for a payment. And bricking, which is just a super fun one. I don't think we've ever paid out on this one, right, Greg?
No,
But in theory, if
not in
I think it's just a hoot that it's on here and it's called bricking. So anybody who doesn't know what bricking means, it means that because of a hack or a software issue, it renders your device, like your phone, inoperable. It's essentially become a brick. It will actually cover the cost to replace that piece of equipment that's being diminished or rendered useless as a result of a hack. And it's not that it hasn't happened. And we've seen cases where I know I've seen cases where servers have overheated and they potentially lost some of their lifespan, et cetera, at the extreme. But it is a kind of a snazzy, it's fun little cocktail party comment. Hey, do you know what bricking is? It is subject to a $5,000 deductible. So when you do engage a breach coach at the beginning, just be mindful that you're on the hook for the first $5,000 of that bill. That said, through the good folks at Ridge Canada and the CLIA program, you have access to preferred preferred rates for that, so it won't be at the full pop of what it would be if you were just walking in off the street. But just do be mindful that costs start incurring up until that $5,000 deductible, and then some of the coverage is on a reimbursement basis, and some of it is on a pay on behalf of, but that can be clarified at the time of the event. And the Law Society has an overall $1 million limit for all claims related to this particular coverage in a given year. We've never come close, knock on wood, within the territories and provinces that have the aggregate, which is all the CLIA ones, but nevertheless, something to be mindful of. If you're going to have a claim, have it early. Have it closer to July 1st. That's a joke, by the way. Please don't have one at all, but just thought I'd try and make some levity out of it.
Yeah.
Your Law Society cyber coverage does require you to have some particular controls in place. So these are the ones to brush up on. If you were to get this slide deck and print it out, these are the ones to take to your IT folks and say, let's make sure we have all these things and they're well in hand, because this is what enables us to access that coverage to the Law Society. Multi-factor authentication, we talked about how effective that is. And how effective it is to preventing things like business email compromise, testing patches, endpoint detection and response, which is your fancy antivirus, training and filtering on email. Some of these items, for example, happen automatically, but let's just double check, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and make sure these things are in place so that you don't compromise your coverage. One thing we'll say is, missing one of these things doesn't necessarily negate your coverage if it had nothing to do with the actual breach. So if you don't have MFA and at the end of the day you have a claim that has nothing to do with MFA, then it wouldn't necessarily negate your coverage. But better safe than sorry. At the minimum, make sure all these things are in place. They're very easy and often free. And to that extent, we say making sure you have all these things and they're up to date. This is a Greg. I'm totally stealing a Greg. When being chased by a bear, you don't have to be the fastest. You just can't be the slowest. So for sure, the criminals take advantage of the weakest links and the easiest to hack. So stay up to date on these controls. And to make life easy, we've also included a cheat sheet where you can get some of these particular key controls taken care of for free, some links to them. Some of them might have some moderate or small costs. Just to be mindful, these are all helpers. They're not the be all end all. Talk to your IT folks, and that should address your things. And that is the end of our presentation. I've left 10 minutes, Santana, so hopefully that's enough time for some Q&A if there's any keen questions in the group.
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? They can either type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask any questions.
You're welcome, Teresa. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. While people are mulling over their questions, one of the things, that last slide with the bear and the previous slide before it, the other thing is too, is you can use those if you're answering no to any of those questions on an application or anything like that. Those are qualifiers for like a higher limits and access to if you thought that 100,000 might not be enough for your firm, in general, that those controls are what are sort of ubiquitous throughout the Canadian insurance landscape as well. So access to higher limits, things like that, if you're venturing out and looking for those, which CLIA also has access to. So definitely get in touch with Ryan. But that if you've got all of those, you would generally qualify for higher limits as well. So
CLIA does offer a $1 million and a $2 million option, as well as the ability to purchase some of the crime coverages, social engineering fraud and computer fraud at various limits. And if you are looking for that, their portal is opening up in the next week or two ahead of the July 1. And you can purchase that online by going through a fairly simple application. But yes, you can email me and I'm happy to tell you more about it. It's not a hard sell, other than I think it does have tremendous value, and CLIA makes it very, very easy.
Thank you guys so much. And if you had any questions from today, I am the cybersecurity consultant here at the Law Society. So you can reach out to me. We can have a discussion, whether it's setting up some information, one of the key things that you need for that insurance, or if you have any questions about the presentation itself. It is one part of our cybersecurity series. We will have more CLEs on cybersecurity, as well as we do have our security tidbits that are posted on the website as well. And we have additional other CLEs coming in the future, so make sure to check the website. Thank you again both so much today. This is amazing information, all very relevant, and we appreciate you guys attending. And if there is any questions, we'll contact you outside of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Santana.
Fantastic.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thanks for the time.
Have a great
Thank you,
rest of your day.
Santana. Take care.